What is going on, FA Nation? My name is Justin Fensterman, along with Howard Bender, and this is another edition of Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk, Turkey Day DFS edition here on the site. And wait, Howard Bender, wait, you're in Heinz Field though. What's up with that?
Well, I was going to spend Thanksgiving over here in the Northern California area, but with the news that the Steelers-Ravens game has been postponed, I got so tired of all the San Francisco people out here going, "Boo, we had to play shorthanded on Thursday night a couple of weeks ago. Boo." So I got so fed up with that, I went across country, and here I am now at Heinz Field in Pittsburgh. And oh, what am I hearing? Boo! Why? Why do we got to play this game? Why can't we play it right now? It's unbelievable, man. I'll say this, and then we can actually talk about the DFS slate. Steelers fans, there's no big conspiracy. And I get that you wanted to play the Ravens when they had, 10 players and coaches testing positive for COVID so that, you had that advantage. But let's face facts. All right. If you play this game this week, if you play it on Thursday with infected players, because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to weed out the infected players and give them, their practice squad guys who also need to test clean. All right. Because if you play with the infected players here on Thursday, then what happens? Monday, Tuesday, you start getting your tests. All of a sudden, Big Ben, Deontay Johnson, TJ Watt, those guys all get test positive because they got infected by the Ravens in this one. And then what happens? You go 11-0 and you beat the Ravens, and then you go into week 13 against Washington and you'll lose because you don't have your quarterback and you don't have your star wide receiver and you don't have your best defensive player. All right, so stop whining about some big NFL conspiracy to screw you guys. All right, this actually helps you for your perfect season. Stop the whining and crying. It's done. It's over with. And it's hopefully for the benefit of your players. So there's my piece. I'm done with it. Check out all the updates on the COVID blog because guess what? Steelers and Ravens aren't the only ones dealing with it right now. Jaguars, Browns, this is all going to be one big poop show this week. So let's just talk Thanksgiving. We got 2 games on the slate, Fensty, and I want to get at it.
Yes, Thanksgiving certainly not ruined because we're going to dominate these 2 games. That's what it comes down to. Let's start out talking about 2 offenses that, let's just say, punt defense for the most part, and that is the Texans and the Lions here because we are dealing with some injury concerns. Number 1, Matthew Stafford. I was playing with fire last week. I went with him in a few leagues. I shouldn't have done that. It was a bum move. But now we're down to the 2 games here. So Matthew Stafford, we're still waiting to see just how healthy or hurt he is, but he's not the only one. Kenny Golladay, who my spidey senses are saying that he's not going to play. And then there's the big factor, DeAndre Swift. I mean, he's practicing. It's a good sign, but that's just one step. So don't go locking him in to your lineups just like that. He still has a couple of days where he has to get cleared. So that's what we're looking at with the Lions, Howard. So when it comes to game planning regarding this Detroit team, where exactly are you headed?
I don't even know where I'm headed with this one here. To be perfectly honest, I agree with you on Stafford. The short rest is a little bit of a bummer for him because he did look terrible against the Panthers. And we know how bad the Panthers defense is. So obviously the thumb is a bit of an issue for him, in that realm. So, and then not having DeAndre Swift obviously was a big deal as well. So what we have to look at here for the Lions is this. If DeAndre Swift does receive clearance, he took part partially in the walkthrough on Tuesday. We need to see if he's going to be allowed to practice here on Wednesday. And hopefully he gets cleared by an independent neurologist in time for the game tomorrow. If he is in the game, that's huge. Listen, Houston's run defense is one of the worst in the league. Absolutely atrocious. They give up a ton of yards. They give up a ton of rushing touchdowns. They can't handle running back pass plays. This is just all what we've seen. If Swift plays, that definitely helps Matthew Stafford. Now, Stafford could get helped if Swift is out and the tandem of Adrian Peterson and Kerryon Johnson.
Make it stop.
I know, right? It's so gross. It's so dirty. It's so filthy. But listen, if those two, in tandem start pounding the rock a little bit more in the first half, perhaps that opens things up for a little bit more play action in the second half for Stafford. And it's a little easier because these corners for Houston are not good at all. So Marvin Jones, possibly Marvin Hall, TJ Hawkinson, the tight end, all in good spots here for that one. I think if you're looking at setting up lineups for a 2-game slate, I think you can look to Stafford as a bit of a contrarian play. A lot of people are going to be all in on Deshaun Watson. A lot of people are going to be on Alex Smith as well, I think. So Stafford presents himself as a little bit more of a contrarian play. You just kind of hope for the best with him.
Yeah, one of the things that we should note as well, besides the fact that Danny Amendola didn't practice the first 2 days of the week, also TJ Hawkinson dealing with the toe issue still. So that's something that we also have to consider. It just sucks, man, especially with the 2-game slate. You've got half the offense hurt right now. That's what we're looking at. So That's why when we win, it's just going to be oh so great, like your Thanksgiving feast. The Houston side of the ball, though, because you call him Puke Johnson. I haven't been able, I don't own this guy. I haven't been able to really feel like I could trust him too much, but the matchup speaks for itself. And the lack of availability with other games also comes into play. But when it comes to the Houston offense in general here, I mean, I'm looking at something like a Watson and a Brandon Cooks for a stack. I'm liking that very much. What direction would you go if you were trying to stack Houston, especially if you're investing a lot into Watson? You might as well hedge a little bit.
You can definitely hedge a little bit. I have zero interest in Duke Johnson. I get it. It's a smash spot for him. He's supposed to do well. You know what? Supposed to do well against New England. New England's not very good against the run either. They're one of the bottom feeders when it comes to DVOA against the run. 10 carries, 15 yards. What is that? So, and you don't look to Deshaun Watson doesn't like to check down to him that much because Deshaun Watson likes to extend plays with his legs. Just because it's a smash spot in a matchup here doesn't necessarily mean that the player is suddenly going to perform well. He sucks at football. We get that. We've seen this over and over again. He was garbage in his revenge game against Cleveland. He was garbage last week against New England, and now I'm not really that into him here. Will I, if I play multiple lineups, will I have a share of him here and there? Yeah, probably. But for me, Houston, this is about Deshaun Watson. It's about Will Fuller, who's in a great spot here also. Kiki Kute is an interesting dart throw coming out of the slot. Brandon Cooks is okay too. That's the thing, is that there are definitely weapons there. So Fuller, Cooks, Kiki Kute, if you want to throw a dart throw at the tight end, although
I was just about to ask you about that.
Well, Detroit's pretty good at covering up the tight end. So, Jordan Akins could be a guy who, you have a share of here and there, but I think there are better tight ends on this 2-game slate that you can avoid Akins really as much as possible.
Yeah, and I actually was tinkering a bit, and I made a lineup with these 2 games on DraftKings, and I'm going to present it to you after we talk about the next game.
If Dallas, it has Duke Johnson in it, it's terrible.
No. You come on. You know me better than that.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, trust me. Every time I see him, I'm just like, oh, puke. That's pretty much what goes through my mind. You ingrained it into my head, essentially, 3 years ago, because that nickname makes absolute sense. And that's the result that you get when you try to play with him. Another guy you're trying to play with fire, you're going to get burnt. That's the bottom line. Let's talk a little Washington-Dallas, though, because everybody, including yours truly, looks at the previous game. You want to see that familiarity. But this Dallas team, is not the same team that they were weeks ago. I believe it was back in week 7 when they squared off. Dallas wasn't able to do much. We saw Ezekiel Elliott struggle. But now you have Zach Morton back, which is huge for their offensive line. They're desperate to get Dalton some protection now. And then what we saw from them in their offense this past week, playing with a little bit more pep in their step. How are you handling Dallas overall, especially when it comes to Zeke going into this second matchup between the 2 division rivals?
I think a lot of what people seem to forget also is that how we've been targeting against the Minnesota defense throughout this season. Their defense is not strong. They don't have a good run defense. They don't have a good secondary. They've been dealing with massive injuries. So, yeah, when you've got Andy Dalton back and, the Cowboys were off a bye week and, he's now healthy, he's ready to go. I think that it's improved. I think this Washington defense is a lot better. Just because you're getting Zach Martin back on the offensive line doesn't mean that the other four dudes sitting on the offensive line are really that good. There's no pass rush in Minnesota, right? They don't have the guys to do it. They got rid of it's Everson Griffin was gone from there. Ngakwe gone from there as well. So they don't have any kind of like a tough pass rush. So yeah, if that defensive line's a little soft for Minnesota, Zeke is going to shine a little brighter. I think this front seven for Washington is really, really strong. I think they smell blood in the water here as far as the possibility of being able to sweep Dallas this season and, make that push for the for supremacy of the NFC East, if that's even possible. So, I look at this game here and I think, is Zeke going to be in my primary GPP lineup? No, it probably isn't, because I think that what they can do and what they probably will do is they'll blitz a ton. They'll definitely kind of sell out to stop the run there and force Andy Dalton into some of those errant throws that we know Andy Dalton does when he's a little rushed. We've seen that so much. So yeah, listen, there's some decent matchups for Dallas. Amari Cooper should be in a decent spot. You might want to get a little CeeDee Lamb, Dalton Schultz. If they get rid of the ball quickly, Dalton Schultz is in a really great spot this week. So, I don't love Dallas here. And I think one of the biggest problems, and we see this in the betting sphere also, there's a tax that you have to pay when it comes to Dallas. People bet on Dallas football like they bet on Notre Dame football. Yep. It's one of those teams that, bettors are just, like the casual bettor is all in on. They go into the book over at Caesars or whatever if they're in Vegas, and they're like, yeah, let me put a little action on it. Ooh, Dallas +3 or -3 against Wash. I'll definitely take that. Dallas.
How about my Cowboys?
Right? It's kind of like that. Yeah, Jimmy Hot Takes. I'm going to be on the air with him later today because he's going to go all in on his Dallas Cowboys because they had a good showing against Minnesota. I'm a little bit more hesitant with them. If I'm building lineups, I will have shares of Cooper. I will have some CeeDee Lamb. I will have some Dalton Schultz. I probably will have a share or two of Ezekiel Elliott as like a contrarian play. For me, it's a contrarian play, but you can look at the ownership projections over at Fantasy Alarm right now, and everybody's pushing the chips all in on Zeke. And I think that they're really overestimating what happened against the crap defense in Minnesota.
Recency bias, it can also hurt you very much. Just be careful. And also don't play with the diamonds in your eyes as well, especially if you are a fan of said Dallas Cowboys. This is business. This is about winning. This isn't with your heart. This is why we have the tools to give you on fantasyalarm.com. And by the way, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the greatest deal of all deals, the Black Friday special on fantasyalarm.com. Yeah. fantasyalarm.com/Black Friday. All of our products from now until 2022, $97. That's incredible. It's 13 sports, everything that you could want. We've got a lot of other sports starting up really soon that you're going to want to get into. Please, we're still in this pandemic. Let's all have some fun during it. That's the bottom line. That's it. When anybody's asked me about it, and I've also talked about this deal every single day because you guys loved it so much, backed by popular demand. This is a no-brainer right here because we have the staff, we have the chats, and we're here. We're not just people. We're not figureheads. We are here to make sure that you win. We are here to help you. When we say when you win, we win. That's the truth. That's what happens when you join the family. Anything you want to add on that?
No, I think that kind of says it all right there. We take full accountability for everything that goes on the site. And yeah, listen, it's very important to us that you guys all do well. That's our job. Our job is to have you playing well, whether it's DFS or seasonal. and we all make ourselves readily available for all of that. I mean, that's the promise that we make to answering all our questions on Twitter, to always be responsive in the chat. So, I mean, yeah, listen, and this $97 it's crazy because it also includes, I mean, it's no payments until 2022, January 1st, 2022, which means that next year you get the MLB draft guide, the NFL draft guide, the NBA and the NHL cheat sheets, all the content there. So, I mean, all of that is yours to have. So, yeah, I think that's what we got. And now for Thanksgiving, also, we've got a bunch of other things. We've got a free roll over at Thrive Fantasy. For those of you who want to do prop games, go to fantasyalarm.com/thrive, right? And then use the promo code alarm, and they'll match your deposit, your first deposit over there. But then there's a free contest for anybody who wants to do it. You go over to Thrive Fantasy, and you click on the Fantasy Alarm free roll. The password is alarm.
That's right. We all know how to spell it. Should we spell it out?
ALARM. And that gets you into that one. Plus, then we've got our Week 12 Pick'em Challenge as well, which it won't include the Thursday game. So you've got a couple of days to kind of sift through the COVID news and all that other fun stuff, and play that. Win some gear, win some hoodies and some hats and some T-shirts and some cash.
I love that very much. Holiday season, it's here. Let's pay for those gifts. The key, not out of pocket. That's what we're going to do here. And we're very thankful, by the way, to all of our subscribers. Let's talk about a potential stack that I've been thinking about, especially based off what you just said about Zeke. Am I crazy with these two games to stack Gibson and McKissick?
See, that's the thing. I won't use both running backs. That to me isn't, that's not the Cowboys run defense. Once Van Der Esch came back, that actually, to me is a little bit better. It's not great, but to me, I look at it as if the game is competitive, they're going to run Gibson, right? McKissick is that guy. If they fall behind and all of a sudden they start needing to go into catch-up mode, and Alex Smith is doing all his check downs, he'll still check down to McKissick some, but I'll use Gibson. If I'm stacking Washington, I'll have Alex Smith as my quarterback. I'll have Antonio Gibson as my running back, and then I'll throw Terry McLaurin in there as my wide receiver. Or I would actually even think about doing Smith, McLaurin, and Logan Thomas. That's also a possibility as well. You put both running backs in there, they're kind of counterproductive, because here's the thing. I only play GPP on short slates. I don't play cash games. There's too much player overlap. The pay lines increase, and then, you see more lineup trains. And so I try to avoid that by just sticking to the GPP contest. So, you don't want to go with McKissick and Gibson, because when one's performing, the other one is definitely not. And that's,
Right.
they're kind of going against each other. And I don't think that, this is a game where we're going to see both of them sitting at the trough and just eating.
It just makes me wonder, because we saw McKissick come back to earth with the targets. And that's what happens when you chase a running back who's so reliant on receptions. Maybe you get lucky if he gets 5 to 7 carries, gets in the end zone, a cheap touchdown. But you can't always rely on that. It just makes me wonder, because we've seen a few of these running backs really not used as running backs, used as receivers. It just makes me wonder, because you said, and you're right with what you said about how they can clash, but it makes me wonder if they have different enough roles where they can still be in this particular situation, if they can be productive. I mean, you were right with what you said. It hasn't always worked, but McKissick is capable of getting those targets. And if Dallas is constantly running at Alex Smith, Mr. Checkdown himself could be seeing more targets, even though I don't like relying on running backs for receptions when I'm doing core builds.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you can do if you're stacking, I would stack, Smith with Gibson and McLaurin in, a couple of lineups, or in one lineup. And then in the other lineup, I would do, Gibson, Smith, McKissick, and McLaurin, and just kind of, that's at least, then you're hedging, because now you've got Washington's offense if it's a competitive game and they're playing with a lead, and then you've got Washington's offense if they're playing from behind and you're, getting all those targets and stuff from McKissick and McLaurin. Like that's how I would end up setting it up. I don't like putting both running backs. That's like, are you going to put, if you're going to stack the Minnesota, are you going to put Dalvin Cook and Alex Madison into the lineup
No,
together?
I will not.
Yeah.
Nope. So,
and Detroit, are you going to stack Detroit? Are you going to put if Swift is out, are you going to put Adrian Peterson and Kerryon Johnson in the same lineup?
Don't you dare ask me that, Howard Bender. Do not ask me that question. I don't want anything to do with either one. And I know that Kerryon Johnson played a lot of snaps, but if I can avoid that whole situation, I'm going to. And I did in that lineup that I'm about to read you about that you could critique the hell out of. Tight ends, though. Which tight end would you prefer? Logan Thomas or Dalton Schultz?
I'd actually prefer Dalton Schultz. I think that, Washington's got a really strong pass rush. With the state of the offensive line for Dallas, I think that Andy Dalton needs to get rid of the ball a little quicker. Dalton Schultz also, he's like, top 10 in tight ends, for targets overall. Like we've seen Logan Thomas get involved, but the dude gets what, like 5-6 targets a game, catches like 3 passes a game, doesn't always get into the end zone. So I think I'd rather go with Dalton Schultz, who I think is going to, could see 6-7 targets in the game, but he can also get some red zone work.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are going to lean towards Thomas. Again, looking at their previous game, he got in the end zone. And I think that's where you can kind of be contrarian in that regard and go with Schultz. And I feel like that is the smarter play. And speaking of that, in my lineup right now that I'm going to present to you, if that's okay with you, Dalton Schultz is currently my tight end. Other players I have in this lineup, I have, and this is on DraftKings, by the way, Watson, Swift, Gibson, Cooper, Lamb, Cooks, Schultz, and then I have Zeke in the flex, and then the Cowboys defense.
There's a lot of Cowboys in there. So,
I know it is.
That's the thing. So you're building this lineup, and you've got Deshaun Watson, you've got him paired up with Cooks, but now you've got, if you're going to put Lamb, Cooper, and Dalton Schultz into your lineup, shouldn't Andy Dalton be your quarterback there? Because for those guys to pop, you need Andy Dalton to have a big game.
Right.
So, right. I would look at that one. I would say, I might take out either, Lamb or Cooper and replace him with like Will Fuller or Terry McLaurin, actually.
Right. No, that's a good idea. And again, this is why we scheme. This is why we do it. So we could talk it out because, hey, if there's something I'm missing, which clearly there was, because I'm essentially taking oil and water and trying to mix it now that I feel so stupid because I have all these Cowboys offensive weapons in here, meaning I need them to score, meaning that defense, why do I have them in there as well? Then, you know what? This is why we talk it out. So that brings me to this question. I have to take one of them out of my lineup, and this is with it not having Andy Dalton as my quarterback. Lamb or Cooper goes.
It's tough, really, because matchup-wise, if you look at like the DVOA charts, Cooper has the softer of the matchup. Going against who is he? I've got it right here. Against Ronald Darby would be the matchup there. CeeDee Lamb, I think, has got the softer matchup against Jimmy Moreland. So I would probably take Cooper out. You also have to look at the fact that with Dalton under center, CeeDee Lamb is actually the most targeted receiver coming out of the slot. So, again, that kind of favors that short passing game that we're talking about, getting rid of the football quickly. CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz, that helps them. Amari Cooper, he'll run his routes, but, again, you're looking for, deeper passing work and abilities over there. Who's your team defense? Was it Dallas?
Cowboys. Yeah.
You might want to take a look at this, and just this is, I know it's counterproductive because you've got DeAndre Swift there, but, the Houston Texans defense, it's not, listen, it's not great, but as a contrarian play, if you think that Matthew Stafford's thumb is still bothering him, You imagine, I mean, having the Panthers defense throw a shutout like last week. Could you have imagined that? Like, I'm so pissed. I was on the Browns defense last week and I didn't use them, and they ended up with a pick six. And I actually thought about the Panthers defense because I wasn't sure about Stafford's thumb, and I didn't go with it there. So, I look at it now and I'm like, well, I mean, is that like the sucker play that I'm, going to Houston, or if that thumb is bothering him and, his weapons are a little banged up, like all of a sudden now does this Houston defense become a little bit more palatable on a short slate?
Yeah, and again, we don't have a lot of choices here. So again, trying to be a little bit different. Maybe that is the answer. And by doing that, I tinker a little bit. Now, if I did that and took Cooper out, let's just say, and I just want to ask this, Michael Gallup, non-factor, not even thinking about him?
I'm not really that interested in him. He doesn't really see much in the way of targets when it comes from Andy Dalton. So yeah, I would avoid him.
What about Marvin Jones, who's now I'm tinkering, and now he's a bit cheaper?
I love Marvin Jones. I really do. I think that this is a great spot for him. He'll be matched up against probably like Vernon Hargreaves the majority of time, and that favors Marvin Jones. It's just a question of, can Stafford get him the ball?
That's true. And yeah, this is just bringing back painful memories. I'll admit it. I got it wrong. I still thought that the Lions would prevail, even with all the risk, all the injuries. We do this Survivor Better game on Alarm After Hours. And look, I have no problem admitting I was wrong. I had the Lions +3, and I was totally wrong on that. I took a chance. I knew what I was doing. I knew about Stafford, Golladay. I just looked at the matchup itself, and I lost it. And that's okay. That's going to happen sometimes.
Well, you know what the funny thing was is that, listen, Craig Mish and I had the Lions in the Westgate Super Contest last week also, because once it got announced that Stafford would play, all of a sudden the Lions were not an underdog. They were actually a 2-point favorite, right. 2.5-point favorite going into the game. So that all of a sudden,
just for context purposes, if I can cut you off, when I placed that bet, that was Thursday night.
Right. Yeah.
That. Yep. So, I just wanted to make sure.
So when we looked at the lines, they started off again. It started off where it was Carolina -2.5, and that's where it was in the Westgate, and that's where you saw it also. And then all of a sudden Stafford got announced, and all of a sudden it was the Lions who were 2.5-point under favorites in this one. So it was like that, like a 5-point swing like that. Taking the Lions was almost like a no-brainer, because you're getting huge value on a pick. It just so happened that it was a trap.
That's a trap. Admiral Akbar. By the way, and you can tell me if I'm wrong on this, I believe Marvin Jones got a 50-plus yard touchdown nullified last week too via penalty. I'm not saying that changes the outcome, but that sure as hell impacts the game as a whole.
Sure, absolutely.
So, God, absolutely. I hate that.
Listen, I love it. I've got Marvin, I've got shares of Marvin. What we're doing now for I was going to do like a full-on playbook for the Thanksgiving Day games, but that's a 3-game slate, and then all of a sudden the playbook makes a little bit more sense. What we're doing now, because it's only a 2-game slate, basically treating this as like merging 2 showdown slates together, or like I used to do on the site for like the Monday Thursday slate when we were doing that. So I've got both games written up, top plays for each game that I like, mid-tier plays that I like for the game, and then a couple of dart throws. I write up both those games there, and then what I'll do is I'll do 4 example lineups. I'll do 2 GPPs for FanDuel, 2 GPPs for DraftKings. But what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to show you examples of lineups with each team stacked. So I'm going to stack, say on DraftKings, I'm going to stack Redskins and I'm going to stack Cowboys in the pivot there to show you. And the other one, I'm going to show you what it's like to stack Texans and stacking Lions. So that way you guys at least have a good idea as far as like, pick the stack that you prefer the most, the one that you like the most. And then from there, you can kind of check out the examples of how to build.
Mama Bird going to provide plenty of worms for all of her baby birds.
I'm going to chew them up and I'm going to spit them out.
Well, it makes it easier to eat then. So you're doing, again, you're helping. You're offering a solution. One more question I want to ask you in general, and that's leaving money on the table when making I feel like people just are obsessive about it. I got to spend every dollar. Where do you stand on that in general?
When you're looking at a short slate like this with a 2-game slate, I'm perfectly fine leaving money on the table. I'll leave $1,000 on the table. I'll leave 800 on the table. I mean, it depends on who I like the most. But, I'm building the lineups within the confines of the salary cap, but I'm not going to sit there and if I'm stacking, let's say I'm stacking, Lions and the price is affordable for a lot of these guys. I'm not going to sit there and push to get a more expensive guy in there because I have the money. This is about I'm building the lineups based on what I think the performance is going to be. And if that means that I think that, a top performance in the lineup and that leaves 1,500 on the table, so be it.
Yep. Right now I have 600 on the table with the tinkering I did with you with that lineup. So I took Cooper out very quickly. I took Cooper out. I took the Cowboys defense out. As of right now, I have the Texans in there, and I actually have Marvin Jones in there to go along with Lamb and Cooks. So a little bit less on the Cowboys there, and that'll give me a little bit balance. And like our buddy Mr. Miyagi once said, balance makes a good fighter. You can follow Howard on Twitter at RotoBuzzGuy and listen to him on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. Fantasy Alarm 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern throughout the week, except for tomorrow because it is Thanksgiving. But Howard's not going anywhere because there is a stream on fantasyalarm.com. Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk, getting you ready with Jen Piacenti, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I got that right, Howard? I don't want to get anything wrong. Awesome. You can follow Howard, like I said, at RotoBuzzGuy. You can follow me at FenceD Sports and catch me on Alarm After Hours tonight, 1 a.m. Eastern, along with Adam Ronis. For Howard, I'm FenceD. We always dominate. No other option. Thanks to John and Pemba as well. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone, including you, Howard. We always dominate. No other option. We still win.